Okay, so the unique problem which we all have and we've all faced as part of infrastructure engineers or developers as we have been in the past. Now, developers always look for a change. See, in today's scenario, everything needs to be in a very active way. Like businesses come back and say that they want a particular feature to be started, to be launched in just a week or 2 weeks and things like that. Now, this has not been the case earlier. Everything we used to take a lot of time on how to go about doing it. So now, this has not been the case as such. So developers always look for changes. They try to implement every new techniques introduced. Whereas operations say change is the enemy for operations and is not reliable and leads to instability. Now, where does the DevOps going to come and fit in? And was DevOps earlier there to solve these problems? See, now much before this word DevOps came in, we already had automation or the word was automation then at various levels. I mean, if you just go back in time, we always had this network interface cards which came with a option to install over the network. Now, this existed even much before many of these organizations adopted the so-called concept of DevOps. Now, what was that introduction of this network-based installation? So, network-based installation was one of the first attempts to start work in an uninteractive way. So that you don't require a lot of attention of the operators to get some work done. With this way, we made sure that we could just need with a click of a few buttons or so, we would get the work done. So this was one of the starting points of the automation that came in. But was automation only at that level? Where do the development aspect come into those kind of automation? So that's what we want to see as we go in a little further. So difficult to integrate, so DevOps problems, so difficult to integrate tools, very less interest in learning other tools, different implementation of similar tools. Now, we know that the DevOps, the development tools and operation tools are two different things. And there was never an integration between these two at any point in time. So the dev tools basically comprise your development, your IDEs, your version control system, and the compilation units. Now this is what would constitute your development platform. And then once this is compiled, you would then need to put this particular you need to have this packaged. This package, put into some other place from where which we could source. So, if you're kind of familiar with, if you're looking from the Unix background, we had these packaging tools like Yum and RPM, etc., where you had these tools which are kept. And if it was not so much on the Windows side, I mean, Windows also would have an equivalent kind of a tool, so where we could have all these packages and stuff, and so is the case with the op guys also. So op guys also have their own tools. Now these tools were primarily to manage these packages that we had built. Example, like if you have your the dev have created their package, and then we need to install them, we need to configure them, and then we need to monitor them. Now, so as you see now very clearly that so there are very clear set of tools for the dev and for the ops, and now how do we integrate them? So that was the question which remained unanswered for quite some time until these bigger, until the web scale kind of architecture had kicked in. So when, earlier we were only dealing with, maybe 40 servers, 50 servers, 100 servers. So there, we didn't have so much of a problem working in an isolated way where devs would do their job and ops would do their job. But when the servers have ranges in thousands, somebody thought about this is not the way to work. Okay, we had to bring in some kind of integration. So that's where this whole thing started about. Development. Now this is the classic case of how the earlier way of operations would work. The development team would send out its code based on the requirement, and then the ops team would then install. The classic case of installing any app. Let's say you're installing Apache. So you download the app, you would install it, then configure it, and then you test this particular app is working or not. So now that's the classic case how it should be. Now, is this okay? Is this the way that we need to work generally? This is the question that would arise as a part of the today's new infrastructure requirements. And is there a way I could bring in some kind of consistency in this kind of operation? So if I were to be doing this for more than 100 systems or so, can this work? Can this really work? So can this really work? So developer gave a faulty artifact and so whatever was deployed was bad, and then the operation teams wouldn't. So now if you look at the scenario here, now the operation team would not know what could have been the problem. So from his point of view, he will check his parameters. So that would be to check whether all the basic necessities are up and running. Like if it's your operating system, check your OS is running, the server, to check if your servers are up, your storages are up, and all that may be required. If it's and primarily these are web servers, to check if the web servers are up, if the IP is configured correctly. All these things is only these kind of activities is what the operations people can do. Now coming to the development side of it, his job is to look into the code assets, and he will not look into any of the operational part here. So now you see that if these two people were sitting together, there would have been a great synergy. So the dev would know where exactly he can really isolate from the dev side if it's on the code aspect, or operation guy can then check if it's on the operations aspect. So when they both sit together, that's where you get a different scenario of operations, which we've not seen earlier as such. So the developer is working on his machine, but he's facing some firewall issues for a local tool. This is the basic thing which I was just talking about, whereas he reaches out to a local IT team and they point out to the infrastructure team, and then finally the issue is resolved. So here, how when both of them are sitting together, they are able to handle the situation better, because each one is able to isolate the problem from their respective areas. Operations team will give their analysis on if a problem exists, and the dev team would give their analysis on how it would actually be if it was all working together. Okay, so after deployment, so developer checks in and figures out that the correct DB was not deployed, whereas the operations after deployment during test, after few scenarios, test sees some anomalies and raise some defects. So so by now, I mean, you're able to kind of see where each one actually is able to work in their individual space and yet to bring in synergy here. So there is clear now. I mean, I want to emphasize here there is a clear-cut difference between both the people, but they operate in their isolated way, but yet integrated together. So nobody gets into the other's job as such. They are still working on their own way. But what comes into the picture here is the way they operate and way the operators themselves manage these entire systems. Because scenarios we are looking here is not like the only scenarios where we have 5 servers and 10 servers. We are looking into hundreds of servers. So the way they operate has to be in a different way compared to what they have done previously. Now, yes, if something has gone bad, and then we roll back. So that's the standard procedure in any of these operations. Now, what I want to emphasize here also, imagine if this code had gone to, say, 100 servers, and you want to roll back, and you want to do this in, say, less than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because if it's web side of it, you know how many number of people come per minute, right? So how would you do this? Now, this is where the tools come in and change the way the DevOps itself operates. If I want to bring back this in 5 minutes, now can we do this in the traditional way where you go and manually change it, or how do you get this done? So DevOps is not just about operations. It's also about using tools to get these operations in place. Like as I said, rolling back of 100 systems. How do you do this in minutes? Now, we can only achieve this if we do an operation the way is in DevOps and have those tools to get this complete synergy going. Who does the build? Okay, so the build piece still lies with the developer. So the build he actually now, I mean, today even the build piece gets actually automated. So somebody checks into one of the version control system, then it is checked out, compiled, build it into a format, and then pushed it into the provisioning system. So this whole process itself actually gets automated these days. And to do this process of automation, now here when I say process of automation, that is build. When I say build and package and push it into the deployment tool. So most of the time this is kind of handled. This is normally handled by the developers themselves, but I know of scenarios in bigger organizations. The build automation is also handled by the DevOps engineers as such. They can do the build as well if a requirement arises. But normally, I have not seen cases where the DevOps handle the build. They start from the package. That is, once the package is created and they push it into a deployment tool, like as you said, a YUM or an RPM or whatever. We start from there as such. Okay, now I'm sure with all of these questions and the answers to them, we understand where DevOps is, right? As I again emphasize, development guys continue to be developers, whereas it is the operations guys who are enhancing their skills to meet up to the level of automation engineer, where he has to imbibe the coding skills so that he can use coding for operations basically, than for actually the application development. So the application development will always lie with the developer. He would not get into the operations in any way, except for fixing up problems and things like that. That is where when they come together. But it is the operations guys who enhances his skills than actually the developers who enhance their skills. But that doesn't stop a developer from coming into the DevOps space. So, but moving into a DevOps space, then what it means is he is leaving his existing dev work and moving towards an operations side of it. I hope this is making clear to everybody now. Okay, so now that we have kind of seen where the whole issue of DevOps and dev and operations are coming together. So let me just read this out for you. So dev is used as a shorthand for developers in particular, but in practice it is even wider, and it means that all people involved in developing the product. That includes your product, QA, packaging, or any other kind of discipline. Whereas ops in a blanket term means systems engineers, administrators, operations staff, release engineers, DBAs, network engineers, security, and various other titles or disciplines that may be. So the word DevOps, I know it confuses, saying that it seems to be that the operations guy will also get into the development and the developer guy gets into the operation. It is not the case. So that's what I was trying to emphasize here a lot. They continue to maintain their individuality, but they work in a more synchronized and more cohesive way together. But what we see here is the ops engineer who, if you take a lot from a background out here in India, he would mostly be a DBA or a Unix guy or a network guy or a storage. Now, this guy would now need to add in much more skills and more importantly add development skills as such. It's only if he had the development skills is when he is able to automate and he's able to think how to automate. So that's most important here. So we have another two more questions. I prefer to answer them. Actually these clears a lot of doubts of so many people. These questions are very interesting as well. So that's why I'm doing a little emphasis on answering the questions as I go through the slides as such. Now, Habib has a question here on the layered products. Is the expectation that DevOps engineers should know OS and also all these middleware technologies? Yes and no. Okay, I'll give you a scenario which I used to work at. Now, does he need to know middleware technologies? Yes, and I'll give you an example. So, I worked in an environment where there were 100 web servers, okay? And I had to ship these log files from these servers and consolidate them in a backend server. See, I know we have other tools like the normal syslog configuration tools and stuff like that. Now, if I had to ship them, I could also use these tools, or also I could write in my own tools. Now, imagine a scenario. I think I could more probably take up the error log message files. I think let me take on that than Apache log. Now, every system creates log messages files in a file. Could be a dmessage or var log messages. Now I have to ship them and analyze them. Now, if I had to ship them, I could do, the normal systems operation of copying from one machine to another and then get it going. Now, imagine if there are 100 servers and then I'm trying to put this all into a single server. Now, that's not going to work in a right way. And I don't want to ship the entire files as well. I just want to ship only that difference of data which has occurred since my last movement of the data. So how do you do this? Now, you need to have some skills on an MQ for you to read that just generated log and ship it. Okay, so you need to have. So now I wrote this using a RabbitMQ and using a Perl as my tool to take the difference of file, put it into my RabbitMQ server and ship it on to the other end. So yes, so if I ask you, yes, but he does not need to know a WebLogic or a WebSphere app server. He just needs to know any of these open source. And most of the time these are, we today use open source tools to manage all this. Yeah, so again, going back to the question, I think which Kishore asked, yes, do we need to know more? Yes, we need to know more. We need to know OS technology, we need to know middleware technology, we need to know your web technology. We even need to know pretty deep level of networking as well as security. Okay, so of course I'm going to come to the security. I mean, not to deep level, but to some level. But you need to know networking at a pretty decent level compared to what you have probably learned previously. Okay, so now DevOps as a solution. Instead of seeing these two groups as silos who pass things along but don't really work together, DevOps recognizes the interdependency of software development and IT operations and help an organization to produce software and IT services more rapidly with frequent iterations. Now we see that there is definitely a requirement for the synergy between these two. So what happens in a DevOps environment? The developers, the operation engineers, and the business team all work together in a more cohesive way than they've ever done before in other environments. So, so this is the kind of first test towards having more closer integration among all these guys. But again, I need to emphasize here, nobody's getting into others' job, but primarily helping each other to understand their domain better. But more importantly, the operation guy's skill has definitely enhanced to get this whole process in place. That is one point which I need to emphasize here. And also, a developer can get into a DevOps job, a business guy can get into a DevOps job, or a systems guy can get into a DevOps job. So DevOps is definitely a different set of skill sets. I'll come into that a little later on what are the skills and all that. But yes, it's a unique skill set to have, and it has a lot of requirements in terms of how you want to push in all these tools there.